What's your best wedding horror story? When my parents got married, they combined their names and each changed their name to a hyphenated version. So their names were Mom, Dad's name, Mom's name, and Dad, Dad's name, Mom's name. When I was born, they named me Daughter, Dad's name, Mom's name. Last week, I spent 20 minutes getting harassed by the clerk who was filing my marriage license. First, she wanted to know my maiden name. My maiden name is Dad's name, Mom's name. I came into this world with a double last name. She didn't like that. Then she wanted to know my dad's real name. My dad legally changed his name. With the power of the law behind him, he tacked my mom's name onto his. That is what it says on my birth certificate. That is what it says on his driver's license. She didn't like that. Finally, she wanted to know my mother's maiden name. My mother, out of all of us, actually has a maiden name, so she got that. But now on the form, the mother had a single name and the father had a double name. She didn't like that. She stressed, repeatedly, that if any of this information was incorrect, I wouldn't be married. She stressed that they were actually going to check. She stressed so hard, her stress had stress. I'm taking my husband's name. I'd had enough of this. Bride had 14 attendants, each of whom got their own song to walk down the aisle to. The church was overpacked by 100 people. The air broke in July in said church. Nope, nary a window to be had in 90-degree Iowa summer. Ceremony was almost 3 hours long because 1. So many people wanted to recite poems or sing songs or whatever, and 2. The groom's brother gave the wedding talk and turned it into a remember when we did this blow by blow of their entire childhood. We finally get to the blessedly cool reception hall. Dinner was supposed to start at 6 p.m. At 8:30 p.m. the bride fainted from lack of food. This was after another 2-1/2 hours of cousins and aunts and uncles giving speech, poem, and song one after another. Why they didn't do this after the food was severed, I will never know. And finally around midnight their fight between the best man and one of the groomsmen. Both of them were blackout drunk and wanted one of the 14 bridesmaids numbers. They decided to fight it out in the middle of the dance floor. Classy/S. I'm actually a wedding DJ as well. I once attended a wedding in which the groom failed to attend. It was a total disaster. The bride looked like she could have been just 18. Absolutely adorably cute, and she just sat out in the hallway crying with her parents while her friends and family were moved from the ceremony hall to the reception area for dinner and drinks. Weirdly enough though, the groom showed up later in the evening after the minister had already gone home. We had their formal dances, but on that day, they didn't actually get married. I had the same thing happen in a wedding I was photographing, except the groom never showed and the bride was left with just her family to make her feel better. Not knowing what to do, I suggested continuing with the party, and she still had the reception and I still took pictures. It was awkward and sad, but I'm glad she was able to smile throughout it all. I thought, she spent all this money. Why let it go to waste? Celebrate being single. A horror story with a happy ending. Friends had a small wedding with a reception in a private area of a restaurant with about 30 people. After the meal, our server came through the doors with the 3-tier wedding cake in her arms. When she got front and center, she slipped and hit the floor like a rock, face first into the cake. The initial laughter stopped quickly when it seemed she might be hurt, because she wasn't moving. She got up with help, obviously sore, but crying as hard as I've ever seen. Hysterically apologizing over and over. Fast forward a couple hours, and thankfully she was physically okay. But even better, she was serving New Yorkers with money who felt terrible for her, and were now drunk. I don't know what the hosting couple tipped her, but I'm certain she picked up another $5,000 from the guests on the side. I threw her $100, and I'm cheap. She was crying again when we left, but for an entirely different reason. This happened at a wedding I was at with the bride and groom's dinner. Lobster tails and steak went flying into the air while 200 people just went dead silent. A short pause, then practically everyone attempted to get up to help the poor woman. She was mortified. The bride kept giving her hugs all night after that. The meals were at least able to be replaced quickly, but everyone in the room tipped her big anyway. On the day of our wedding, it was discovered that the venue had booked 2 outdoor weddings at the same time, ours, and another in a gazebo not very far from ours. Somehow the father of the bride in the other wedding found out that our processions were going to be at the same time. He also found out that our procession included a bagpiper, as myself and groomsmen all in kilts, while his daughter's wedding procession was to have a harpist. He approached me and very nicely asked if we would consider delaying our procession for about 20 minutes so our bagpipers would not drown out their harvest. After conferring with my soon-to-be wife, we agreed that a 20-minute delay was no big deal for us. Unfortunately, the father of the bride should have taken some other factors into consideration and instead delayed his daughter's wedding. Because their procession went off without a hitch and everyone in their wedding heard their beautiful harvest. But the vows were pretty much inaudible once our bagpipers started at the requested 20 minutes later. I found this out later that day because apparently one of my cousins attending my wedding had a friend that was attending the other wedding. Seriously, it was dearly beloved. We are gathered here today to see you eat bagpipes until our procession was over. I hope the other wedding party was able to get some sort of compensation from the venue for their oversight, since they had been informed of the musicians at each wedding and didn't bother informing either party. On top of that, our DJ had burned a CD with our chosen husband-wife dance song on it and didn't bother to check it before the reception. The song would not play because the CDs somehow did not burn right, and we had to pick another song to dance to on the fly. We got a nice discount from the DJ company for that one. My brother's third wedding. Everyone shows up except the bride's father, who shows up almost an hour late in a t-shirt and jeans, proceeds to loudly exclaim what he would do to the bridesmaids, insults the groomsmen for dressing up, gets faced and wrecks on the way out. Or my father's wedding, where the bride's mother brought whiskey to the wedding, gets faced before the ceremony and loudly exclaims how my father is not good enough for my mother, gets thrown out and slashes the tires on the limo. Cousin April's 1992 wedding was ours. In no particular order, Groom has with the stripper at his bachelor party the night before. Was super proud they were getting married at a wedding chapel John Wayne Bobbitt was working at. Bride and groom snort coke in their limo on the way to their reception. Bride and groom continue to snort coke in the bathrooms at the reception. All relatives get blind drunk, including my husband's grandparents. We were the only sober ones. Cousin Lori wants to dance to I Want You Like an Animal with my husband, who happens to be one of her first cousins. One of the relatives made off with all the table decorations. All kids under 10 years old smeared wedding cake and food all over each other. Groom/bride returned to her mother's house with the rest of the family. All they cared about was opening envelopes for $. They gave a less about anything else. Amazingly, marriage lasted 10 years. I guess Cousin April got tired of her husband not coming home at night because he was too tired to drive home. Oh yeah, and she's a teacher to elementary school children. For the record, this happened 2 days ago at my cousin's wedding. The bride and groom had requested there be no young children at the wedding, which in my opinion is a pretty understandable request. Well, a member of one of the families created a huge stink about it, saying they had no one to watch their 1-year-old. My cousin and his fiancée kept insisting that they didn't want children, at least at the ceremony. Well, they brought the baby anyway. I bet you can guess what happens next. 2 minutes into the respectful silence of a really nice ceremony, the baby starts screaming bloody murder. Luckily, they were at least respectful enough to leave when the baby started crying. Well, I guess baby calmed down, brought them back in, and before you know, round 2 bloody murder. You could feel the entire crowd cringe. I felt terrible for my cousin and his new wife because they are really genuine and understanding people. It was incredibly rude and disrespectful. TLDR, bride and groom request no babies. Someone brings baby. Baby screams bloody murder during ceremony, twice.